Hey everybody, today I'm going to go over just kind of quickly how to do some simple photo editing. So I've got two images here and I'm just going to show some simple stuff for people to do photo editing on a computer rather than on a phone using like Snapchat or Instagram or whatever. So first off, if you're on Windows, I personally like to use paint.net. Type in paint.net download into Google, and it'll be the first thing that you find there. Sorry, my cat's going crazy. And it'll be here under getpaint.net. And it's a free download. You don't need to go to the Microsoft store to get it. If you do, they'll ask you to pay like $4.99 or something. But it's completely free. And you can get it from this other site here. And let me see, I think that's about it. It's a pretty small program. Right now they're on 4.2.15. And if I remember correctly, the nice thing about this program is that I think, let's see, yeah, it started as an undergrad college project. Let's see, and now it's being run by one particular guy, but it started as a university project. I always thought that was kind of cool. But anyways, it's still a free download, and it's somewhere between Microsoft Paint and Photoshop. Like, it's not Photoshop level in terms of all the stuff you can do. It doesn't use as many resources as Photoshop, of course, but it's also not as simple and stupid as Paint. It's much better than that. If you're on Mac or Linux, there's another one called GIMP, and yeah, it's kind of got an unfortunate name. It actually stands for GNU Image Manipulation Program, but you can type in GIMP download, and the first site will bring you here, and then you'll want to do download directly. And as you can see, you can get it for Mac or Windows or Linux. It's really similar in terms of functionality. The layout is actually pretty similar, but the tools are in slightly different spots. So if you're on Windows, I would recommend paint.net. I just personally find that one to start up a little bit more quickly, and it just seems a little bit easier in my opinion. But GIMP is pretty much equal in terms of usability from what I've seen anyways. And honestly, there's nothing that I've had to do to a photo or a document that I couldn't do on either of them. Paint.net is just a personal preference. So anyways, once you get those, you got to get the photos to your computer somehow. If it's a phone, you might be able to plug it in, or you can always save photos like from your phone to your Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive account, and then download them from there onto the desktop. These ones were actually taken with an older digital SLR camera, and so I had to plug the actual camera in. Funnily enough, the camera is only 6 megapixels, but because it's a kind of a nice Nikon camera, yeah, it's 6 megapixels, but it's kind of like the really high quality megapixels, if you will, or at least they seem to be in my opinion. That's sort of the advantage. Even though the camera's old, it's really color accurate and true to life and stuff. And I've got a bunch more. These are just the two that I happened to copy over onto here for this video. So once you've got them there, the first thing I would do is make copies of them. So you can highlight them, right click and do copy, right click paste. And the reason that you'll want to do that, where did they paste to? Yeah, I say that and of course then I don't find them. So I'll do Control C, Control V, there we go. They are in there somewhere. But the reason that I would say do that is so that you're not messing with the original files. There they are, they're like hidden. So that you're not messing with the original files. So that you don't do something that you can't undo later on if you happen to save it. But at any rate, I'm just going to show you some simple things. So install one of these programs, paint.net or GIMP, and then you can right click the photo and do open with, and they'll both show up here in the context menu by default. So if they don't happen to show up, you can do open with, and then you can do choose another app, and then you can find, paint.net or GIMP in here, but since it's already in the context menu, I'm just going to do open with paint.net, and that'll open up. So now one of the things to remember with these, yeah, by the way, paint.net will ask you to update all the time. You don't have to. You can, but you don't have to. You can just exit out. One of the things with these programs is it really matters what's selected, and it matters what layer that you're on. So if you're just going to do simple things, don't worry about the layers. That's a little bit more advanced. And what I would do when this shows up and takes up the whole screen, if you hold Control and scroll the mouse wheel, it will zoom in or zoom out. So the first thing I'm going to do is just show you how to simply crop it. So you'll want to do rectangle select, and then I'm going to, let's crop to like, I don't know, that size. I have no idea what size that is. So once that's highlighted, that's sort of your working area. Anything outside of that won't be affected. So like for instance, if I do a paintbrush, it's showing up only inside of, I know that's tough to see, I'll undo it. It's showing up only inside of the selected area. That's like your working area when you've selected it. So I'll undo that again. But what we want to do now is crop it. So image, crop to selection. There you go. You've gotten rid of all of that stuff. That's super common. If you want to, you can also do, let me see, Control A will select all, or you can come up to, let me see, edit select all, and you do it that way. And that's really handy if you want to do simple adjustments, like color adjustments. So like for instance, that's a quick black and white toggle. You can switch it to black and white, just like that. Now again, it's only going to switch what you highlighted. In other words, what you selected. So for instance, you can do black and white, and now you see it only made that part black and white, which I know is kind of tough to see because the colors aren't very vibrant. But here, the stones and stuff are black and white. Here, they're not. That's kind of neat because, for instance, one of the things that you can do that I've done is highlight only the outside of a person in a photograph, and then turn the rest of the photograph to black and white while keeping the person in color. That looks kind of neat sometimes. Or just doing the opposite, making the person in black and white and keeping the rest of it in color. And it's just kind of a neat feature. Another one that you can easily do, adjustments, you can do sepia. So these are just kind of like, you know, like filters that you would find on Instagram or whatever. Let's see. And you notice here there's a history of what you're doing. So when I Control Z, it undoes the last thing that I did, which you can also do with these here, step backward, step forward. So sepia again, remove sepia. But that little history thing there is nice because it sort of keeps track of where you go and what the order you've done stuff in. The order kind of matters because, for instance, if you want to change colors and then add text to it, but you've added text first, okay, that will sort of keep track of it. And you might find it gets more complex with layers if you're using extra layers, but that history just really helps. Again, you can add layers, and then you can put layers on top of or beneath one another as well. And I'm not even getting into that. This is just sort of simple stuff. But like for adjustments, you might want to do, I don't know, hue, saturation. And you can play around with the colors there and make it more saturated, less saturated. Lightness, darkness. So these are just some sort of simple things that you can do. But you can see, like right there, for instance, it makes the whole image a lot more vibrant and sharper. Let's see. And then hue is going to change it, as you can see, the sort of tint. And if you don't like it, you can always just reset it. So like if I mess the hue way up, I can just reset that one. And we'll do OK. There's a bunch of other effects, like, for instance, I can do, I don't know, I want to find one that's interesting. Janet, get down. These all have different, these all will do different features, do different actions on your photo. So kind of play around with it, and just remember you can always undo a thing. And if you made a copy of the file to begin with, nothing's permanent anyways because you have that copy. But yeah, you can always undo. So if there's something that you've done that you don't like, just remove it. Now, some of these effects that you add will take processing time. And so if there's like a loading bar in either GIMP or Paint.net, or if it looks like it's frozen, give it a minute or two. I've had, especially on very large files, where you're only doing particular things, I've had it take up to a minute or two on my old kind of slow computer to simply add in some of these effects, because it basically has to calculate on a pixel by pixel basis what to do to that particular pixel to give you the effect that you want. So I don't know, yeah, let's do stylize and we'll do the emboss thing. So now it's asking us what angle do we want to emboss it at. So we can change that. And you notice that it's changing. It's a little bit tough to tell when you're using this, but when you click reset, you see it changes back and it gives you a preview. I'm not going to do this one actually, but after I click OK, it would recalculate it and actually lay it down permanently, because this is just a preview and it's not quite as accurate as what it would be totally. Let me cancel that one and find a better one. I don't know, let's do oil painting. That one's kind of cool. So there's brush size and coarseness. So you can see how this gives it sort of that weird oil painting effect. Coarseness, let's try that one. And that did it pretty quickly, right? But now you can see, I mean, it really is a totally different image. You can still sort of see the rocks and you can still make out the snail, but it's stylized, right? It's got an effect added to it. So let's say I'm all done with that. I'm working on the copy here. I'll do File, Save. And if you just do File, Save, it will save it as whatever format it was already in. And one thing to check is oftentimes the quality is set by default at like 90% or something like that. And the reason is that makes the file size much smaller. I would immediately put that up to 100. If it asks you for chroma subsampling, which it does for JPEGs, I would set that to 444. Again, this is a matter of file size versus quality. And since hard drive space is inexpensive, I would just stick to the best quality and then do OK. And now we can close this and look at that copy. And there you go, there's the actual image. So again, this is stuff that you can do with like Snapchat or whatever, or Instagram, or those silly things. But this is for more like real pictures that you want to actually keep and you aren't just sending to social media. That said, you can of course transfer this back to your phone or just open up Facebook and you can put them onto social media as well. It's still a regular picture. You haven't changed the format or anything, you just changed the content some. There's not really much that I wanted to show you about this other one, but let me open it up quickly and see if there's anything neat that we can do. So I'm going to crop out some of the junk here. And then, let's see, I just want to change it to sepia. That's kind of boring. Let me do Control A. Adjustments. And like that type of thing is kind of cool. The green looks plasticky, but it's kind of neat. So you can make this stuff look really weird and different from what it was, originally. Oversaturated doesn't really look great. Yeah, good enough. So now you can of course do save as well. And this is one other thing. You might want to change the format. So for instance, I like to use PNG oftentimes, PNG. PNG allows for transparent backgrounds. JPEG is kind of universal. There's also JPEG 2000, though I don't think I see it here. That might be JPEG XR, which is supposed to be less lossy. One of the issues is every time you edit a photo, there tends to be some loss in the data and loss in sort of like the visual fidelity. And going with a lossless format, which I believe JPEG 2000 is, which I think they're calling here JPEG XR, helps that. You can see there's also GIF and TIFF and bitmap and a whole bunch of other standard ones. And then, so I'm going to leave it at JPEG for now and just do save. replace, yes. It might ask you if you want to replace it. Now again, I'm replacing the copy, not the original. And let me see. I don't think it's on this one. There was one other thing I was going to show you, but forget about it for now. Another thing you can do quite simply is you can add text. You can change the color of the text. You can change the font. That'll take forever because I have a million fonts installed. But you can add text to it. So like if you wanted to use a picture as a start for like an invitation or something, I don't know, for whatever reason, or have an image where you've got like a lot of sky and a lot of ground, where it's easy to add text and it looks good. Like this here won't look very good when I add text, but I can still do it. So yeah, I don't know, I'll just put this there. So with this image, it looks way too congested. There's too much junk there. But the point is that you can do it and you end up with an image. And this is kind of nice for like, again, if you want to post something to social media that's like a, maybe like some sort of bulletin or something like that, without having to use Word, you can take a regular picture and turn it into a bulletin. So I keep thinking of this image I have of my ex-wife, where I had taken the background and made it black and white and left her in color. And then, you know, it was on the side of her, there was a lot of blank space because there was sky and then some, a lake and then beach below it. And the beach was rocky, but everything above it was kind of plain and open. And it would have been really easy to add text into that spot. Again, if I want to make it like an invitation or something like that, or some sort of notification or whatever. So anyways, there's a whole bunch of stuff that these programs can do. The point is, they're easy to use, and it shouldn't make anyone scared or nervous. As long as you make copies, you're not going to ruin the original. And you know, when you're done, you end up with stuff that can kind of, you know, look sort of unique. So, I mean, you can see the difference between those two. And that's just really super simple stuff that I did on the whole image. Again, remember, you can highlight just a part of the image and stylize it or change it or modify the colors. If you want something to pop out and be more sharp and bright, you can do that to just one part of the image and make it kind of stand out from the rest of the image. And the tools are completely free and small. They don't take up a lot of space on your hard drive. And in the case of GIMP anyways, they're open source. In the case of Paint.net, and now it's done by this one person, but it's a good one to use. So yeah, that's about it. Enjoy.